Most Americans think starting over requires massive money, a beachfront condo, a perfect remote job, some secret escape plan. But in 2026, something strange is happening. More ordinary Americans are quietly disappearing overseas with less than $10,000. Not retiring, not vacationing, actually leaving. Because the math in America is breaking people. Rent feels impossible. Burnout never stops. Entire paychecks disappear instantly. Right now, there are still countries where $10,000 buys more freedom than some Americans get making six figures back home. Places where your savings buy time. Time to breathe. Time to rebuild. Time to escape survival mode before burnout completely destroys you. And today we're looking at 3 countries where Americans can realistically start over in 2026. But the final country might honestly be the biggest loophole in Europe right now. Let's start with the country that quietly became one of the biggest escape routes in Asia. The Philippines feels less like moving abroad and more like stepping sideways into an alternate version of life. Because the first thing Americans notice here isn't the beaches, it's the language. Almost everyone speaks at least some English. Menus are readable, conversations are possible, bureaucracy becomes survivable. And when you're rebuilding your entire life from scratch, removing the language barrier changes everything psychologically. You don't feel trapped. You don't feel constantly confused. You can actually function. Then the prices start hitting you. Outside the luxury districts of Manila, apartments can still cost $300 to $500 a month. Street food often costs less than a Starbucks coffee back home. Fresh tropical fruit becomes daily life instead of a luxury purchase. And in smaller cities like Dumaguete or Iloilo, some foreigners are surviving on monthly budgets lower than what many Americans currently spend on car payments alone. That's when the mental shift begins, because you suddenly realize your money isn't disappearing instantly anymore. And for many Americans, that feeling alone becomes emotionally addictive. But what makes the Philippines dangerous is comfort. It becomes incredibly easy to stop thinking about escaping and start imagining permanent life there. You wake up beside palm trees. Coffee shops stay open late. The pace feels slower. People smile more. Stress levels drop, and after a few months, many Americans realize their nervous system has been stuck in permanent overdrive for years without them even noticing. That's why remote workers, online freelancers, Amazon sellers, crypto traders, and burned-out professionals have quietly flooded into the country over the last few years. Not because they're rich, because lower living costs buy them something more valuable than luxury. In 2026, that flexibility has become incredibly valuable, but the Philippines also forces trade-offs. Infrastructure can feel inconsistent. Internet quality changes heavily depending on location. Typhoons are a real risk. Big cities can feel chaotic and exhausting. And if you move here expecting perfect tropical paradise, reality will humble you extremely fast. But for Americans trying to emotionally reset while stretching limited savings as far as possible, the Philippines remains one of the easiest entry points into international life on Earth. Now the next country feels completely different. Cleaner, more organized, more developed, and honestly, more stable than many Americans expect. Malaysia is what happens when affordability collides with real infrastructure. The airports feel modern, the highways look developed, internet speeds are fast, public transportation actually works. Shopping malls look futuristic. Healthcare is shockingly good for the price. And in parts of Kuala Lumpur, you genuinely feel like you're living inside a wealthy global city. Until you check the prices. That's the strange part about Malaysia in 2026. It doesn't visually feel cheap at all. Luxury high-rise apartments with rooftop infinity pools can still rent for under $700 a month outside the premium districts. Local food courts serve full meals for just a few dollars. Grab rides cost less than parking in most American cities. And private healthcare prices are so reasonable that some expats say doctor visits here cost less than basic insurance back home. But Malaysia's real advantage is psychological stability. Unlike many ultra-cheap countries, daily life here feels efficient. predictable, functional, and after years of stress in America, that matters more than people realize. You're not constantly fighting your environment. You can sit in an air-conditioned cafe with reliable Wi-Fi. You can work remotely without blackout anxiety. You can access modern hospitals, gyms, malls, and co-working spaces without spending Western money. Life simply feels smoother, and for many Americans, smoothness itself starts feeling luxurious. There's also another reason people quietly stay here longer than planned. Malaysia feels emotionally neutral, less politically aggressive, less socially tense, less exhausting. Some expats describe the feeling as finally being able to turn their brain off for the first time in years. And once that constant mental noise disappears, people suddenly realize how burned out they actually were back home. But Malaysia isn't perfect either. The humidity is relentless. Visa systems can change. Some foreigners struggle socially because local culture feels more reserved than Thailand or the Philippines. And if you hate heat, this country will test your soul every single day. But if your goal is rebuilding your life somewhere modern, connected, stable, and financially survivable, Malaysia may honestly be one of the best value for money countries on earth right now. And then there's the final country, the one almost nobody expects. Because this isn't tropical Asia, this is Europe. Serbia feels like the version of Europe many people thought disappeared 15 years ago. Cafes full at midnight, walkable streets, historic architecture, fast internet, strong nightlife, safe city centres, affordable restaurants, real community culture, and living costs that still feel disconnected from the economic reality destroying most major Western cities. Belgrade especially shocks Americans, not because it's cheap, because it feels alive. There's actual energy here, riverside cafes packed with people late into the night, apartments hidden inside old communist buildings beside modern luxury towers, young entrepreneurs building startups, digital nomads quietly arriving every month. And unlike much of Western Europe, it still feels like normal people can participate in city life without being rich. That feeling is becoming extremely rare in 2026. A modern apartment in Belgrade can still cost a fraction of what Americans pay in cities like New York, Miami, Seattle, or Los Angeles. Restaurants remain affordable. Public transportation costs almost nothing, and Serbia's cafe culture is so deeply built into everyday life that entire afternoons disappear without anyone rushing anywhere. But the real reason Serbia is exploding among foreigners right now is positioning. You get European lifestyle, European walkability, European aesthetics, European social life without Western European pricing immediately destroying your savings. And for Americans trying to disappear quietly and rebuild financially, that equation matters enormously, especially because Serbia has also become surprisingly attractive for freelancers. But Serbia also comes with reality checks. Winters can feel grey and emotionally heavy. Bureaucracy sometimes moves painfully slowly. Salaries for local jobs remain low, which means Serbia works far better if you earn online or bring outside income. And culturally, people can initially feel colder or more direct than Southeast Asia. But once people adapt, many end up staying far longer than planned. Because Serbia gives something many modern cities lost years ago, a feeling that life is still happening outside. People still sit together for hours, cafes still matter, friends still randomly show up, streets still feel social, and after years of isolation, subscriptions, screens, burnout, traffic, and financial pressure, that atmosphere hits Americans emotionally harder than they expect. And honestly, that's the deeper pattern connecting all three of these countries. It's not just lower prices, it's breathing room. That's what Americans are really searching for in 2026. If you had to disappear tomorrow with $10,000, which country would you choose?